Okay, so Nigel and Tim, welcome to the Disenfranchised. How are you both doing today?
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, really good. Good to be here.
Really good, Ed. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, and thank you for both joining me today. This is the first time I've done one of these podcasts where I've got co-founders on, so you're going to have to bear with me while I get used to who to ask the questions to and who not to. But the typical thing that I would normally start with is to find out people's first jobs and then move through their career from there. So perhaps if I start with Nigel, it'd be good to understand, Nigel, what was your first job in your career?
My first job wasn't that exciting. It was working in a shoe shop, so fitting shoes. So that was my sort of first part-time job. My first job in franchising was when I was about 22, and I got involved with an American concept of actually to do with reading glasses. With reading glasses were just coming into the UK, and they were put out on concession. And that was really what gave me my sort of love of franchising. It was the first time I was exposed to helping people set up in business and actually the power of what franchising could be for them. So it was right back then in the early 90s that happened.
Early 90s, excellent. Well, I want to go back to that the shoe one first. Was that what was your role there? So were you helping people try on the shoes, or were you behind the counter? Yeah, what was your kind of day to day?
It was literally people would come in and how can I help you, sir? And off I'd go and get the shoes and try them on. And if they were too small, we'd have a little machine out the back. We'd put them on that stretched them a bit. And then we would take them back and see if they would fit. Oh, they're perfect now, thank you. So yeah, I mean, it was sort of a part-time job as I was studying, so it helped pay for the beer.
Yeah, sure. And what was your kind of dream for your career at that point? Did you have an idea on where you wanted to take your career?
Yeah, absolutely. Electronic engineering, of all things. So I studied electronics, and I also had an interest in sort of technology and electronics, and I always expected to follow that course. And I intended to join the RAF and actually do radar or electronics in the RAF, but that didn't really work out. So then I was going to become a police officer. That was the thing I really wanted to do. So,
wow, they're quite differing professions there, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
And then you ended up finding franchising with a glasses company. So were they selling the glasses, these reading glasses? Tell me a little bit more about that role.
It was when reading glasses were deregulated in the UK, so it was an American firm, and they're still around. Foster Grant is part of that group. So they introduced reading glasses to be sold just over the counter, and that was something that just hadn't been seen in the UK at that point. So it was quite an interesting opportunity as a franchise, because it enabled people to for them to be placed into sites, into shops, and then the franchisee role was very much about just making sure the stock levels were maintained and the revenue collected. So it was a very simple concept. It was a part-time franchise, and it was something a little bit new, and I kind of fell into that, really. It wasn't something I'd sort of planned. It was just, I'd met somebody, and that was what he was doing. So, well, why don't you come and do this with all your retail experience in a shoe shop? You'll be brilliant. So, and I kind of got involved, and really from that point never looked back, because I started to get the bug about franchising, and then from that other opportunities came my way, and built a career in franchising. So I do. It was all down to the shoes that did it.
Yeah, that's it. So how did you kind of get to learn about the franchise element of it? Because a lot of people today work in franchise organizations and perhaps don't really have a true idea that, other than there's some boss somewhere that is part of this bigger corporation. So I guess you knew the owner, right? And kind of learned from them.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know much at all. I mean, I look back at that and think how naive I was, really, and how much I didn't know. I mean, my role initially was very straightforward. It was a sales role that was going into these environments to place the glasses. So I wasn't directly involved in franchising straight away. And then as you're doing this for the franchisee, you start to get drawn into, well, what is the franchisee? What's his responsibilities or her responsibilities within the business? And then one day we had done an exhibition, and there were lots of inquiries and just nobody to go out and meet those people. So I got asked, you now know quite a lot about the business, can you go and talk to them about it? So I found myself doing that, and gradually learning. And there was a lot of people around me who knew quite a lot. The individual who set up the business from the States, he was quite an inspiration to me, and I even today think about some of the things that I learned from him and put them into practice. So it was a very gradual learning curve, and I certainly took many years to really appreciate it, and a number of different sort of franchisors and environments, which is how I built my knowledge over the career, which I guess is what most people do.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I want to come back to that and dig a little deeper into your knowledge on the franchising world. But Tim, over to you really to find out what your first job was in your career.
So I'm not sure about the career, but my first job was cocktail barman, which they now call mixologists. So I left school at 18 and headed to London to make my fortune. And while that was on the back burner, I had to sort of pay the rent. So I worked at night as a cocktail barman, and then in the day, sort of, trying to work out what I was going to do to make my fortune.
Yeah, brilliant. That's very interesting, especially, both of you, where you are today and what your roles are, to see where you started out. And it's pretty similar to most people, right? In working in bars and working in retail at the end of the day. So where was your career taking you at that point then, Tim? What were you trying to do, or hadn't you worked out at that point?
Well, I think at that stage, which is a really good lesson that I try and tell my children now, is, have a plan. Because I didn't have a plan other than I was going to sort of be the richest man that ever lived. That was really sort of what I had, in what and how, there was nothing. So I started a lot of things that didn't even get off the ground. And the bar, actually, the nightclubs, I became a partner in a nightclub. And that sort of took over for a bit. And then again, this was, it's going to make my age, but it was the mid to late 80s. And when mortgages were quite easy to get, I started buying properties. And I had 7 properties at one time, and I rented out beds rather than rooms, really nice properties. Yeah. And, that sort of gave me a passive income, which enabled me to look at other things. And then very early, I was about 23, I left the UK. It was 1990, just sort of coming into an economic downturn. And I bought a round the world ticket, which was meant to be Hong Kong, then Australia, and then to go to Los Angeles. And I went to Hong Kong and didn't leave for 7 years. So ended up sort of starting the first business there with a very good friend, which is called DX. So he had actually started it, a short while before, and then we developed that into 9 offices over that period of 7 years.
Right. Okay. So interesting. So the thing that I picked up on there, really, that's really interesting, is that you went straight into almost entrepreneurship, right? You was out there trying to start things yourself, and this is something I struggled with myself, is to understand what makes that person tick, right? How are you sitting there thinking, I'll try starting this, when most of us are out there, applying for jobs at the end of the day and going down that route. And what do you think made you decide to take that as a different approach?
I think in my family, I always had, I say no one worked, they worked very hard, but my grandmother, who was a big inspiration to me, was in property. And, right. She'd buy properties, do them up, and, it's entrepreneurism. It really inspired me, because you could see that there was freedom, and also what you put into something's what you got out. So the idea of working for someone else where you didn't have freedom, and, you couldn't build something was never really sort of appealing to me. So I always wanted to start something, to work for myself, to build something for myself, to, be able to be flexible. So from a very early age, I think from when I was about 12, I sort of saw that, and that's what I wanted to do. And consequently, I was always wanting to get out there. So when I was at school, I had Saturday jobs. I paid my own way from when I was 15. So everything that I did, I had to earn money. So I Saturday jobs, holiday jobs, and everything. Consequently, my schooling suffered a bit. So my O levels, or GCSEs as they are now, were okay, but not brilliant. My A levels, we'll forget about those. And then I just wanted to get out there. So it was really just, I just wanted to get on with it. That was the thing, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because from the sounds of things, you're really influenced by the people around you, right? And that's something that I guess, Nigel, in your career, then that's where that franchising piece started to come in. Is you started to see people around you that were in this entrepreneurial kind of mode, I guess, and you were learning what they were doing. So, yeah, could you move me through your career a little bit and tell me a bit about some of the brands you've worked with, and what you learned along the way, I guess.
I mean, I think I've always had an entrepreneurial streak as well. I mean, that was my first proper job, but similar to Tim, from the age of 15, I had car cleaning rounds, I had a mobile phone business, and was always looking for something a little bit more than was just going to be served up. And when I joined the business in London and I sort of saw franchising, I felt there was a great opportunity to really sort of take that forward. That was exciting to me. And it was all about, perhaps I was quite young at that point and not in a position to set up a business, but helping people set businesses up gave me great exposure into everything from understanding business finance to, the processes, some of the legal aspects. So it was exposure from quite a young age to, quite a lot of information, which started to feed. So I gained a lot of knowledge around, formations of companies, business finances, even some of the legal aspects. And it also, I think, started to really propagate that desire to want to do my own thing at some point in the future. So that was really part of my early career. And then I sort of I did that for a few years, and then had an opportunity to actually set up my first business, which I launched myself. And it was actually in mobility products, which was a total change of direction. And it was something when somebody actually gave me a call and said, we've got this great product, it helps elderly people get out the bath. It wasn't the most sort of driving thing. I thought, wow, that's really what I wanted to hear. And I kind of first of all said, no, it's not really the sort of thing I can get passionate about. And then this person was fairly persistent, and I said, well, let's have a look at what it is. And actually it turned out to be quite an opportunity. So I did in fact leave the world of franchising and got involved in that business. And that was a little, very, very small business that I went into partnership with a gentleman that I've known for quite a few years. And he really wasn't that interested in taking it forward. He kind of liked it as a hobby and ran a pub as well. And he was really more interested in running the pub and said, look, I don't want to take this forward, but you can if you want to. And I said, well, here's a great opportunity. And within, say, 18 months, we hit our first £1 million turnover in that business, and on to run that for 10 years. And
makes it a bit more exciting then, doesn't it?
It was a road, and I look back at that, and I look back at that time, and I think I wish I had the knowledge I have now to apply then, because there are things that I would have done very, very differently. So, we definitely made a lot of mistakes, and and it was a roller coaster, but it was a good time, and it was a time in my career where I definitely developed, and a lot of the things I'd seen in the earlier parts of my career were able to put into place and learn from mistakes and develop as a person. So it was a great experience.
So what sort of mistakes were you? Sorry, Nigel. I just wanted to find out. So what sort of mistakes were you making in those early days? Because I think if anyone's listening to this and they're a budding entrepreneur or they're thinking about starting their own business, they're going to want to avoid them, right? So what kind of mistakes were you seeing at that point?
Lack of controls, I think, if I had to sum it up. I remember, one story that was quite shocking, where we employed somebody who was responsible for the accounts and the finances, and she was a failed VAT inspector. And that worked really well for us, because we had a zero-rated product. The VAT was a big part of we got a rebate every quarter, so therefore they were quite tight on inspecting our records. So it was great to have somebody that had the knowledge she had, and we put a lot of trust in her. But as the business grew and we went to a computerized system, what we failed to recognise is she really didn't have the ability to continue to sort of operate the finances as effectively. But rather than ask for help, what she used to do was bury all the records and just mark them as done. And it only came up one day when I got a call from a supplier saying that you owe us £250,000. It'd be really good if you could send us a cheque. And and I rang this lady up and I said, I've just had a call from this supplier, and then she burst into tears and ran out of the office, which said all it needed to say at that point. And true enough, the responsibility was clearly with me. We hadn't had the appropriate controls in place, trusted in that person to do their job, and never thought twice about it. And it was a big lesson in, at the end of the day, when you run a business, you're responsible for everything that goes on in that, whether it's health and safety, whether it's finance, whether it's the technology, the people. You are ultimately responsible, and that was a big wake-up call. It was, it caused us a pretty tough time to get through. So, but a good lesson.
Definitely. So, where did your career take you from then? And if you kind of give us a brief overview up until the point where we're talking about easyStorage, maybe.
Yeah, well, I always said don't go into partnership with people, and that first business I did go into partnership, but I thought I was safe because it was with my first wife, and I say the word first because she's my wife, and we actually broke up, and as a result of that, that caused an also big problems within the business because we were equal owners. So I eventually sold out and moved away, and then thought I'd better get a proper job. And that was quite a hard transition, having gone from 10 years of doing my own thing to have to go into a corporate world. And I thought, well, I definitely want to be in franchising because it's something I understand and love. And luckily fell on my feet and I had a great opportunity to join Nigels and Tims, who obviously were the opticians and a very well-established business, who had a fantastic franchise model, but it hadn't really evolved over sort of 20 to 30 years at that point. So they'd franchised and kind of parked it, and they had a lot of franchisees, but a very, very out of date and very a system that definitely wasn't fit for purpose at that time. So my role was to come in and bring my business experience and franchising experience together and redevelop the commerciality of that model, and then relaunch franchising within Nigels and Tims. So great opportunity, some pretty good years, and we used that then as a growth platform and opened 56 stores in just over 2 years, which was great. So we were able to accelerate the growth of the business. And then one day I woke up and I was told, we now work for Boots. So as Nigels and Tims and Boots came together, I moved over to Boots and then had the privilege of introducing franchising into Boots. And of course, Boots is a huge organisation. So it was a great opportunity to really take a platform and bring it into that kind of brand. So, right. And again, great.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, is that something that they took too well as a brand? Because I'd imagine there's structures in place that are very different to a franchising structure, and so therefore making that transition must have been quite challenging, right?
It was really interesting because Boots Opticians had tried to franchise, but they hadn't really got the model where they needed it to be. So it became more of a joint venture. There was the attraction for the franchisee just wasn't there because they didn't own anything. They never had anything to sell. So all their hard work was in building a successful business just to hand the keys back at the end of the term. So that clearly wasn't what franchising is all about. It didn't drive the entrepreneurs who wanted to build a retirement and then, celebrate that success by selling their business or moving on. So the Nigels and Tims model was very much an equity-based model and did fulfill that. So one of the first jobs was to convert the Boots ones over to the equity model that we developed in Nigels and Tims, and then establish that as the platform within the business. But of course, in any corporate environment, when you're working in a business, there was 144,000 employees in Boots when I was there. So you can imagine trying to get a decision made on something is it's a long process. So it didn't give us the ability to be as dynamic as perhaps you want to be as an entrepreneur. You want to be able to do things and you see opportunities and take them. The processes were very involved and the sign-offs and routines were very involved. But from a corporate opportunity. It gave me a real understanding of perhaps the bigger business and the corporate machine and compliance and sign off and checks and all those things that perhaps in my earlier career that I didn't appreciate. That was a great opportunity to really, and it developed me. I mean, I had the opportunity, I was very lucky to be able to go on senior management training courses and do my Prince qualifications and develop as a leader as well within that business. So that was good. Then I had twin girls, and of course I was living down in Berkshire at the time, and Boots is up in Nottingham, so I was spending a lot of time living away in a hotel. And I decided, when the girls were born, the best thing to do was I wanted to be local.
Yeah.
And had the opportunity to join Guino, which is a French skincare brand, and they were looking to bring franchising to the UK. And I had the opportunity to join them and develop a franchise model for that business. So it went from optics to beauty and skincare, and that was just down the road. I could walk to work, so it was a great opportunity. So I spent almost 2 years developing the franchise within the Guino business, and we launched the first pilot in Darlington, which went on to be a great success. But really, the opportunity for me there to go any further was pretty limited. And I then had the opportunity to join British Gas and become a head of franchise development for the Dino brand. So Dino Rod and Dino Plumbing, which is, of course, part of British Gas. And that was really going back into a larger corporate environment, which at that point was what I was quite used to, having spent many years at Boots. But again, it offered what the Dollars and Aitchison business offered, and that was a franchise model that had been around. In fact, Dino was the first non-food franchise in the UK. So going back now nearly 60 years ago, and a founder member of the British Franchise Association. So the pedigree in the brand is huge.
Yeah.
But again, it was a brand that had established a really, good reputation. It was well known for franchising, but the franchise model hadn't changed. And at that point when I joined for nearly 30 years, and of course the marketplace and the environment and the economy had changed. So what they were looking for was someone who could come in and take that model and make it fit for purpose. And that's exactly what I'd done at Dollars and Aitchison. So it was a great opportunity to do that again with a great brand. So 5 years of doing that, and I must say it was a great experience, and a lot of opportunities again for my own personal development within that, which is of course what we all want, is to be able to, at the end of the year, look back and say, well, how am I a better leader? How am I a better businessman at the end of this year? How have I developed? And I think as long as you can also answer that question, then you're heading in the right direction. And then this guy came along and disrupted it all.
But I mean, it's quite interesting. It shows the depth of knowledge you've got in the industry, and to be able to take on big brands like you have, and help them to turn around into a franchising model, I think it's really interesting. And I think it's interesting to see a brand like Boots that I've known very well and wasn't aware, there's franchise opportunities out there. It's interesting to see that they took the model and liked it, and that became part of their strategy. I saw on Dragon's Den the other day, there was Peter Jones. He was talking about there's not that many successful franchises out there. Well, I think the list of franchises you've been involved in kind of is testament to the opposite of that, really. So it's really interesting to hear you talk through that. But Tim, it'd be good to hear kind of. Oh, sorry.
I was just saying, I think what I learned from that journey is that there is almost two camps of franchising, and it's made me a big fan of what I call ethical franchising. Franchising can be brilliant if it's done properly, if it's ethical, it's well thought through, it's piloted correctly, it's funded correctly. Franchising is a great tool, but I've also seen the opposite, and I've seen people try to franchise without a proven concept, who are really just interested in taking something to market for a quick win. And that's where franchising gets a bad name. So, it's so important that it's done right. And that's really where, our relationship really started to, develop, because Tim's insistence that it was done right within this business. And probably Tim's best to explain that.
Yeah, makes sense. So I'm going to go back to Tim in a second. I just got one more question for you, Nigel, and it's just in terms of, you said a business has to be proven before it moves into franchising. So is that a time thing? Is it like they've been operating for 2 years and a certain percentage of profit, or what does a proven model look like? in your eyes?
I think it's not necessarily a time thing. I think within any business there are proof concepts. So does a customer want your product? Can you deliver the service that you think you want to deliver? Can you deliver it at the price that the market wants? Is the market growing to facilitate the growth of the product or service that you're offering? They're kind of major proof points that you've got to be able to test and demonstrate. And that was really important when we started, is that, we actually went out on a van and realized we needed a screwdriver. It was as basic as literally doing it ourselves, rolling up your sleeves to getting on with it. But then as the business started to develop, being able to prove, yes, customers definitely want this service. Customers, what do they value about the service? Yes, they do value the elements that are our unique selling points. Can we deliver it at the right price? Is this something that's a figment of our imagination, or is it something that the market really, wants, and we can deliver a genuine service? And then can we make money at it? Ultimately, are the costs lower than what we can generate at a reasonable price, so that it becomes, economically viable? That's one of the biggest measures you've got to be able to demonstrate. And then finally, can you scale it? If you can deliver it, can you scale it? Because if it won't scale, it won't franchise.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So then, Tim, back to you, just to find out your career up to the point where we're then learning how you guys came up with easyStorage. So yeah, over to you.
Sure. So I mentioned Hong Kong. So I developed DX, co-founded it and developed DX in Hong Kong over 7 years. And then we sold it. And it was I'm still very young, what to do next. And a friend of mine had just started investing in Russia. And, at that time, Russia was it was over there. Didn't really know much about it other than that. And he said that, it's the biggest economy, emerging economy that will ever be. Go and have a look. So I went over there and was setting up a mutual investment trust, which is something I knew nothing about, luckily with the support of his network. But I was the CEO of this business. So I had to really, from grassroots, learn everything about mutual investments and all of those things. And what was interesting at that time was that you had to be a license for it, and you had to take the exam in Russian.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't speak a word of Russian. So I was looking at how best to do that. And there was really two options. One was to give up, or the other was to get the law changed. And everyone was laughing at me, you're never going to get the law changed in Russia. But I went to the Securities Commission and explained that we had $2 billion to invest, and perhaps they'd like to make an exception. And that got them to reconsider it. And in the end, they compromised and let me have a translator to do it rather than having to learn. So that was really weird. So thinking on your feet, it was, got there. So anyway, after I'd set that up, we set up a property fund. It was the first property fund there. And we were looking at buying buildings. And there weren't that many, what you'd say, grade A buildings at that time. But wherever you went, there'd be documents everywhere, literally under the table, on the top of cupboards and in stairwells. And I was saying, you can't keep these documents here. You've got to put them into an archive. And they're all saying these are Western businesses, Price Waterhouse and Citibank and Linklaters. And they were saying there isn't an archive. And what had happened is when privatization came, all of the infrastructure stayed with the state. So Russia is full of archives, but it was for state businesses. Yeah. So what they left was an opportunity to set up a document storage business. Now, I knew storage from Hong Kong and from other places, and storage is one of the best business models you can ever have. It's the original subscription-based. I mean, everyone gets very excited about subscriptions now. And if you think about storage, it was one of the very early subscription-based businesses where you put something in to be stored and then you just pay that money month on month. And document storage is right up there. So I had the eureka moment of, wow, this is an untapped market and probably the biggest market there is. I've got to start something. So we'd done a joint venture with DX with a partner in Argentina, and they were out of Texas. So I phoned them up and I said, look, I understand you've got a document storage business, or records management business, they're called. Can I come and learn? And he said, absolutely, but I've just sold the business and you've got 2 weeks. So I literally got on a plane the next day and I went to Houston, and I didn't sleep very much, and I did every job there was, from selling to accounts to warehouse to inventory, everything you could do. And I learned pretty much a little bit on everything. And I don't know what made me ask, but as I was leaving, the CFO was there. I said, if you had a virgin market, what would you do differently? I don't know why I asked that, but it was very good that I did, because he said, oh, wow, if I had a virgin market, you wouldn't have to do this and that and all of these things that overcomplicated the business. And he was saying that in any business, you want to keep it simple, you want to keep processes. So he said, I wouldn't do this, which is adding extra services you didn't need. And they were only put in place because they were trying to get one better over competition. Yeah. And the other, he said, charge annually in advance. And I was thinking, wow, would someone really pay annually in advance? And he was explaining, the levels of money we were talking about, they would. And those two things made the business, which was amazing. So I went back to Russia and to Moscow and set up the first document storage business there, very much in a much smaller way than you would, you do on scale. But I was doing, as Nigel was pointing out, the proof of concept. Will people trust us, as a new found business with their documents? Can we attract them at the right price and all those things? And it worked very well. So then we set up in Warsaw in Poland, and that worked well. So then I set up in Kiev, and that worked well. Then went to St. Petersburg, and then just got into a sort of rapid growth mode. And we ended up building 37 operations in 37 cities in 11 different countries. And we did that over 12 years. So it became we had about 82% market share in Central and Eastern Europe, which was extraordinary. And that was my first.
Sorry? I was going to say, which brand was this under?
OSG Records Management.
OSG Records Management.
Which,
okay.
I mean, you would have heard of it, but in Central and Eastern Europe, you definitely hear of it, and we built it up into a really, substantial business, and that gave me the first insight into franchise, which I didn't realize at the time, because we had joint ventures, which now I understand was more of a franchise, but without processes, in China, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. So we had those, and they were good operations, but they were quite painful. And from what I've learned now, the reason was because we didn't have the processes and in place. It was just sort of using the brand. It was more like a license, which had its own problems. But anyway, that aside, we had a successful growth. And then I sold that business after 12 years. Came back to the UK because I got married, and like Nigel had twins. We both got twins. My first child, and then we had twins. And I took a little bit of time off, enjoyed, sort of family life and, buying a house. I've been away 19 years, but always had that need to get back into storage. It's a real bug. And that recurring revenue, as I say, is quite addictive. So I looked at the market and thought document storage is sort of done. The big walk-in storage, like the big boxes you see, sort of done as well. But then I looked at the market, and it was very small. It was about 750 million at that time, I think 780 million pounds, which for a whole industry is tiny. Yeah. Looked at the American market, and it was 42 billion. So wow. There's a real disconnect there. So looked at why it was so much bigger there, and they had a much bigger uptake. 7.5 square foot per capita of storage space was used. In the UK, it was 0.7. And it all comes down to, as wouldn't be surprised, price. So the average invoice in America was $91, and in the UK it was £190, or in London £360. So it's a huge disconnect. So I thought, if we could bring the price point down by about 50%, could we expand the market and take it from what's called a event-driven purchase to a lifestyle choice, which is what it is in America, much longer period of stay. So looked at that, did some numbers, and thought, we've got something here. And I approached Easy Group, Stelios, and pitched that to him, and he loved it. So we bought the worldwide rights to easyStorage, and then it was sort of, how do we develop it? And I'd looked at, I'd done in Russia the owned thing, where you employ people and roll it out, and it took 12 years, and I was a bit more in a rush. And I think when you've got a brand like easyStorage, the customers will expect that to be national, if not international, pretty much straight away. So I asked a couple of people who I could perhaps attract as a non-exec in the franchise world, and Nigel's name came up twice. I don't think anyone else's name did come up. So I looked at Nigel's CV on LinkedIn, and I thought, wow, there's no way I'm going to be able to get him to sort of come across. But anyway, we met, and he agreed to meet me. And we met and we spoke we're only meant to be for an hour. And we spoke for, literally the whole day.
Yeah.
So we were just talking and talking and talking. And we said, look, I've got to go, let's pick this back up. So we met sort of 2 days later, and we carried on talking. And I said to Nigel, will you join us? And I don't know, maybe you want to say what you thought.
Well, I'm looking at this thinking, wow, what a great opportunity. The opportunity to franchise a brand with an easy name is unbelievable. But a model that got recurring revenue, that was a virgin brand that every territory was available, I was getting so excited. And also thinking, there's a huge amount to do. This is a massive piece of work. This isn't something you can do from giving a few hours advice every now and then. This isn't a non-exec role. This is hands-on. So I'm listening to this thinking, this sounds fantastic, but it's not a non-exec role. So
I said, okay, look, we've talked and talked and talked. Are you going to be my non-exec or not? And he said,
no.
I expect your heart sunk at that point, Tim.
Because I thought we were getting on so well. Yeah. But anyway, and then
it just wouldn't. I knew it wasn't going to work as a non-exec, and actually we clearly got on very, very well. We had a lot in common. It was exciting, and and I thought, I just want to be part of this. So I said to Tim, I can't do this as a non-exec. It just won't work like that. But I'd love to be involved. And Tim said, well, what does that look like? And I told him what it looked like.
And very quickly I said, done. Let's do it. So, and then we cracked on. And it was a very quick build up to that proof of concept that Nigel was talking about before.
So when did you guys meet them? How long ago was that?
So that was in 2017. It was sort of at the end of 2017.
Yeah.
Okay. And for you, Nigel, what was it that excited you about the brand the most? I know you mentioned a few things there, but which one was the main thing that made you think, actually, yeah, this is something I can really get my teeth stuck into?
There were a whole load of ingredients that came together, I think. I'd spent 10 years running my own business and really had a desire to do that again. But then I spent many years in a corporate world and was getting a little bit fed up with, the restraints that the corporate environment puts on you. There were a lot of benefits, don't get me wrong, but I really wanted to be able to do something. And so 5 years having done what I was doing, I was definitely ripe to do something else. But also, had responsibilities and everything else. So wasn't just going to take a punt on something that I didn't really understand or know. Then, meeting Tim, the first thing was people by people. And, really trusted in Tim and loved the story, loved his background, felt very comfortable. So that was the starting point. Then you say, well, actually, what is it that we'd franchise? An easy brand, easyStorage, just makes sense. And for me, easy stands for, well priced, good, reliable. It's not going to be the most expensive. It might not be the cheapest, but it's well priced. It fits the proposition so well. So it was very clear with the brand that what we were trying to do as a business was going to be very much in line with the values of that. So that I loved. And the opportunity to be able to come into the market, into a world market, not just a domestic market, and say, we can create a franchise from scratch, knowing everything I've built up over the years and apply that right from the beginning. Because don't forget, a lot of my career was going in and fixing retrospective things, and some of the stuff's hard to do. Here, we can not just make the mistakes. We've learned those lessons. Let's build something that's absolutely perfect, or as close to perfect as you can get. I was
going to say, and now be very honest, have you made mistakes that you've learned from in this one?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll continue to do. Just let Tim know I continue to do that, of course. I mean, we're learning all the time. The market's evolving all the time. There are challenges. We've had some challenges over the last 18 months that, of course, we didn't expect. Of course, we're learning. And if I don't think to sit and say we didn't would be so arrogant, and there's always things that we could always retrospectively look back and do differently. And but I think what is important is the pillars, the foundations, and the pillars are right, and we have a very clear vision and a very clear roadmap of what we want to do, how we want to do it. And here we are. We launched franchising towards the end of 2018, and we've just come into 2022, and we have pretty well full coverage across the UK.
I was going to say, how many brands do you have across the UK?
So we really now only have sort of 4 or 5 franchise territories available. So that will fill coming up to around 38 to 40, just depending on a couple of the territories, how we do that across the UK. I've already started now on the international rollout. So we're working with experts in that field who are helping me, with that. And, we're expecting to be able to have our first international live by the end of 2022. And then commence rollout through next year. So, the 5-year plan is very much about being pretty well. If easyJet fly there, we want to be there, because the name is, of course, very well known. So
brilliant. So, Tim, I've got to ask, why approach Stelios? Why go after the Easy brand?
Well, looking at well priced, and that's what it wants to be. We didn't want sort of cheap. It was. You wanted to have a brand that, when you saw it, spoke to the value, which is well priced and reliable. And I thought Tim's storage probably didn't work, so it needed to have something else. And I racked my brain to this day. Could it have been something else? I just don't think it could. And what I said to Stelios at the time was that easyJet get it, absolutely. Easy Hotels get it. But why not easyStorage? Why hasn't that been done? It's such a natural fit, and I think if you see our vans go out, you don't need to work out what it is. It's reliable, well-priced storage, And then we say, we deliver, we store, and we collect, which shows the mobile element of it.
I think it's one of those brands where the colour tells you the brand before you've even read the words. Do you know what I mean? I think it does really stand out. So it's probably pretty wise move to go with a brand like that. But for people that are maybe listening to this who don't necessarily know everything about easyStorage and the business itself, could you just give us kind of a brief overview on that for me, please?
Yeah, so the first premise was basically to make it well priced. So we wanted to make it an affordable choice for our customers. Whereas at the moment, storage is very much what I say, an event-driven business. So if something happens in their life, not always bad things, but can be good things, but they're events, you're forced to use storage. Yeah. Whereas we wanted to bring the price point down where it became a lifestyle choice. So that was the first element. The second element was to make it convenient. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be on the, visible on the main arteries. What we did is took it one step further and made it mobile. So we take specially adapted vans with storage units on the back to the customer, and then we load it up very much on an easy jet sort of formula of that we charge the base, and then if they want extras like packing material, or they want us to pack the house, we can do that, all with a sensible pricing and a very open and honest pricing, so everyone knows where they are. So it's more convenient. People know where they are with the pricing and with the service. And it's convenient. I think with a lot of other competitors, you'll phone up and say how much, and the answer is always it depends. And that's never good. We have a very open policy.
Yeah,
that's really in a nutshell.
I think the attractive thing for me would be, let's say I'm moving house, and I want to store my belongings for a couple of months because the house that I'm going to buy isn't ready yet, or whatever it may be. If I'm going to a storage unit, a static storage unit, I've got to make however many trips that I've got to take, either renting out a van, taking my own car, whatever it is, and factor in probably a day or so's worth of my time as well into doing that. Whereas what you're saying there is you'll come to the house or wherever the goods are that need to be stored, and then I'm imagining that's a lot less time, right, to get everything loaded up into one van and off it goes. So
absolutely.
Do the goods then stay in the van, or do they go off to a different site somewhere and are stored in that way? How does it work, that part?
They go, so we take it from the customer's premises to the nearest storage depot. And we've got about, I think, 45 now. So we've got 45 storage depots throughout the UK, and that's growing literally by the week now. So we take it to the local storage depot. If the customers want to have access, they can come to the storage depot and have access. Or they just let us know when they want it, have it returned, and then we bring it back to them. And I think, you say that you'll store for 2 months, it always ends up being more than that.
Yeah.
So, as I say, we're about 50% of what the big box walk-in storage is.
And what's really nice, when they have the items back, if they've moved house, and of course we're going to return to their new home. So they've actually benefited from the removal while it's in storage. And if we've picked up in London and they say we've moved to Glasgow, can you return it there? Absolutely, we can. I mean, there's a charge for doing that, but we'll pick up their items from the depot, we'll take it all the way to their new home and deliver it to their drive. So, it takes all of the hassle out of it for them.
And we just want it to be, a no-brainer for someone to choose us. So we take away all of the elements or the obstacles that would perhaps stop people using us.
One of the things I think that really endorses that is, sometimes we're so passionate about our business and our brand and delivering great service, but when you go on Trustpilot and you read the reviews people write, I mean, we score 4.8 out of 5, which is a great rating. But what really touches me is when you read what people write on there, what it means for them, and what they really value as part of the service that we offer. And that to me is the endorsement. That's the proof point. That's what really matters. What do our customers really think? So it's also a pleasure to go and read those.
And I think it's really, that brings us to a point of why franchise.
Yeah.
So there were 2 reasons really. One was because it's quicker to roll out. But that wasn't really the main reason. The main reason is that you want really high quality, passionate people on the front line. So with the franchisees, you get a much better quality operator than you would if you perhaps just employed a manager. And they put their heart and soul into it. And as Nigel's saying, these reviews, it's so heartwarming and passionate. And that's because the franchisees put their heart and soul into it,
When I was
I guess for the customer as well, like that really translate, because if you can see somebody really cares about their van, their kit, themselves, the customer is going to feel like, okay, they're going to look after my stuff as well. You can see they're taking care of their van, and they're taking care of me as well because they want repeat business. But still, it's that general feeling of you are very important to me. And I think sometimes that can be lost with employees, right? You know, sometimes they're a little bit disgruntled, or they're end of their career or whatever it may be, and cannot care so much. But a franchisee is very different, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, our employees and, you know, the staff at the support centre are amazing.
Yeah.
It's a different skill set. You know, it's a really different skill set, and managing people remotely is always a challenge. And I had that when I was in Central and Eastern Europe. You know, I mean, we did really well, but you did have those challenges. But if you have someone with ownership.
And I think to sort of endorse the point, when I was in optics, we used to laugh, but every time you took a company operated store and franchised it, you'd expect around 30% uplift in performance.
Wow.
Just by franchise.
That high.
Because the franchisee was so passionate about giving the right level of service. They really cared. They went the extra mile with every customer. Every customer was very personal to them. And you see that in franchise. In a good franchise, you'll see that passion and that care translate through those businesses.
Excellent. So in terms of the franchisees themselves, what's their kind of day-to-day look like?
So this is what I would call a hands-on management franchise. We're certainly, I tell you what we're not looking for, and that is somebody to drive vans. You know, that's very much part of the business. As it grows, you build that resource in. And what you're doing as a franchisee is working, I mean, it's a bit cliche, but you're working on the business, not in the business.
Yeah.
So often our franchisees will have other franchises. They may be in quick service restaurants. They may have other interests. They'll have some business knowledge perhaps, but not be from a storage background. Certainly, I think we actually have one franchisee who has a storage background, and that's it. So their role is very much about running and building the business, and that is looking at everything from the logistics, team motivation, team recruitment, servicing customer inquiries, working with customer. Is there any issues? There are reschedules, networking in their local communities, building brand awareness, everything that's about how can I take that business forward? And everything that we do within easyStorage is all about efficiency. So we're looking for efficiencies, whether that's how we store, whether that's how we operate, whether that's some of the resourcing that we use. It's all about efficiency, because it's those marginal gains that will make the big difference. So a franchisee is very much about making sure that they're following the system to maximize all those opportunities, because that's what translates to ultimately their bottom line. As the business grows, they probably will need to take on a warehouse. That's not essential to start with. Some do, some don't. But then there may be property considerations and looking at building a warehouse or taking on extra vehicles. They start usually with one of our vans, but they'll probably need to take on 2 or 3. So as the business builds, they're thinking about scaling and when it's appropriate, where those should be. The areas they operate are quite large. So there's some strategic thinking about how they best utilize the space in the areas. So very much about managing the business. And if that doesn't sound a lot, it is. There's a lot going on in business every day. So it's what I call hands-on, but a management franchise. It's not something really for someone to throw some money at, then go and do something else and come back and expect it to be there. It is a business that requires, you know, a lot of commitment and work. In setting up any business, it's tough. No, this isn't just a magic wand that gives you an instantly successful business. And I always stress that with franchisees. They're not buying a job. Building a business is tough in franchising or any other way. What we can provide is the systems, the tools, the resources, because a big part of what we do as a franchisor is centralize a lot of the very heavily financial burdens on the franchise by operating central services, which we can amortize across the network, which is a huge saving. So things like the sales teams that take all the inbound call traffic, the marketing teams who look after all the sort of PPC and Google and all the sort of technology that runs the business. We have software developers here building the tech platforms that we use, that the franchisees use. All these things would be not accessible at an individual level. The scale of those businesses wouldn't justify the investment. But as a franchisor, that's what we can bring to the table with a great system. And then it's about the franchisees executing that at a local level. But also, really importantly, feeding back. Because franchisees are great, you know, one of our values is one team, and it's about, you know, it's not a one-way street. Franchisees are experiencing things, you know, in their areas. It might be things that are slightly different or opportunities that come up. So it's about a two-way communication with franchisees so that we can take that and look at how we can develop as a business together. It's really important.
Yeah, I think that's really important and really interesting that you mentioned that, because that that ties into me to what Tim asked before I think it was Argentina, asking for other people's advice on what should I be doing? What could I be doing better? What's the opportunity here, and learning from that. And I'm getting the sense from you two that you use each other quite a bit for those kinds of scenarios. Here's the challenge in my world. How do we overcome that? And it's something that I love about the franchising model anyway, is that there is it's shared knowledge, isn't it, at the end of the day, that can be developed for the better of everybody. I think lots of people have heard the stories of the Big Mac was created by a franchisee, for example, or something like that, right? It has to be something you're in together. It's a partnership, and that's how you're going to be successful in growing. So I think that's really, really cool. So I'm going to start to wrap up things now a little bit, and I know you guys are expecting these questions, so I'm looking forward to some good answers here. So the first one is any funny, strange, or weird stories that you've experienced in your career?
Okay, I do have one. I had to rack my brains for one that was appropriate to share, but this one I will share with you. And this goes back to the reading glasses years in my early career, where they'd arranged to meet a potential candidate at a Marriott hotel in Southampton, it was. And he told me, he said, yeah, I'll be wearing this coat and this shirt, and I'll be sat by there was a fountain in there, I'll be sat by the fountain. And so I turn up on pretty well on time, and I look around and I see someone exactly dressed as you described, sat by the fountain. So I go over and introduce myself, and he stands up and shakes my hand, and we sit down, and I get a coffees for us, and I start talking about the franchise, and we have a good chat for about an hour and a half. And really nice chap, and he's really interested. And I got back to the office next morning. I'm in the office, and one of the ladies in the office, because of course this was early 90s, we didn't have emails or anything like that. So like a dinosaur, there's no emails. Can you imagine? I'm in the office, and the lady says, "Did you get the message about James not being able to attend the meeting yesterday?" And I said, no, he was there. I met him and we had a good chat. She said, no, he couldn't make it. His children, one of his child children were ill, and he had to go and pick them up from school. I said, no, I can assure you, I sat in that hotel and we had an hour and a half conversation. So she said, no, he definitely wasn't there. So I picked up the phone and I rang him and said, when we met yesterday, he said, we didn't meet yesterday. I thought, happened here. So I had the business card of the guy I met, and I rang him and I said, are you James? I can't remember what the surname was. And he says, no. I said, but we had a meeting yesterday. He says, I just finished a meeting and you came over, and because you bought the coffee, I thought I should sit and listen to you. And I spent an hour and a half talking to him. But the funniest thing was he proceeded and bought the franchise.
Oh, wow.
He became the fact he was so excited about what he heard and loved it. He actually went ahead and bought the franchise. So there's a sort of story there that you can walk in, sit down in front of a total stranger for an hour and a half and sell them a franchise.
Yeah, well, if the opportunity's right, it's right, isn't it? But amazing. Perhaps that should be a tactic moving forwards for franchise recruitment, is just, try and meet some random people in hotels and...
So I did learn a lesson to actually check I was speaking to the right person at that point. He said, I just sat there because you bought me a coffee. I felt obligated to listen.
Brilliant. I love it. Fantastic. And yourself, Tim, have you got one?
I have one. When I was in Russia, I'd only been there probably about 3 or 4 months. And I got pulled over by the traffic police. And they didn't speak a word of English, and my Russian, as it turns out, wasn't as good as I thought it was. I didn't speak a word when I arrived, and they put me in the back of their car, which is always a bit intimidating. And they were talking at me, quite quickly, and I just thought, this isn't getting anywhere. This really isn't getting anywhere. So in my best and limited Russian, what I thought I'd said to them was, listen, guys, I don't have my passport on me. Why don't you go back to the station? I'm going to go back to my apartment, get it, and I'll come and meet you there. And at that point, a gun comes out and goes into my base. And I'm like, whoa, what's happening here? And then it turns out that they spoke a bit more English than they'd said. And apparently what I'd said to them is, look, I've had enough of this. Why don't you guys nod off? I'm going home.
Oh, so anyway, not a good idea.
I fixed the matter by emptying my wallet into their hands, and we were friends. So anyway, that reminded me that your communication isn't probably as good as it can be, and that's something that has come into our business. I mean, communication is something we're always trying to improve.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? But wow, that must have been a very scary experience. So thank you for sharing that with us. So to talk then about a different kind of experience. So what's been the proudest or most inspiring moments in both your careers?
I think I was thinking, it's interesting thing about inspiration, because I reflect back to it. It's actually somebody I met and asked him to become a speaker at a conference. And when he told me his story, it really made me sort of look at myself and think, how dare I complain about anything or think anything's impossible? And I won't go into the full story because it's quite a long one, but basically he was captured by the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia and is the only surviving foreign national that wasn't executed. And he survived by befriending them, and basically he built up a relationship, and he used that, and in the end they didn't actually execute him. So he stayed on in Cambodia and became a volunteer to clear mines, and he was clearing these mines down this track that was meant to be already clear when he found one that wasn't clear, and it blew off his arm and his leg. So he's lying on the ground bleeding out. There was no help around, and he realized that he didn't have long to live. So he had a saline bag, but he didn't have any way of injecting himself with it. So he realized the only thing he could do was drink it, and that saved his life. It just about gave him enough fluids in his body, and they managed to get him to a hospital, and he survived that. So following losing an arm and a leg and being a prisoner of war and getting away from execution, he then decided to run 18 marathons with just one arm and leg, and went on to run the Marathon des Sables across the Sahara Desert, and then went on to do a couple of 1,000-mile events. And I think, when we think something's challenging or a little bit impossible and give up, there is a real lesson there that no matter what you're faced with, never give up, and anything is possible if you set your mind to it. And he was quite an inspiration to me.
Yeah, wow.
So
Unbelievable story, isn't it? Unbelievable.
His name's Chris Moon. He has actually I think the book's come out recently about his story. So it's quite an inspirational read if anyone fancies it, but real inspirational character.
Yeah, perhaps if you share the link with me, I'll make sure it's in the show notes for this one, because it'd be really interesting to take a look at that. Thank you for sharing it. And how about yourself, Tim?
A difficult one. I think, I'm so involved with easyStorage at the moment. Thinking back at things isn't so easy. But what I must say I'm really inspired by is looking at our team here. We've got Nigel and Halim, who's our other co-founder, who's our marketing director. Just looking at the passion of, the whole team, and particularly Nigel, and Halim and Matt, who's our FD, and it goes on. But we've all been doing about 10 jobs each at the beginning. So, and it's just turning the hands to it and fixing things and improving on them and building them. And just the passion. Every morning we come in, it's sort of like, what can we do today? And I think that gets me, really excited about coming in, and it's truly inspiring. So I just love the camaraderie we have here, and I find that very inspiring.
I think you guys can be proud of what you've built as well over quite a short period of time, really. Like you say, one of your previous businesses was 12 years to get to a big size, and I think you're kind of there already in 4-5 years through a pandemic as well. So
that was amazing, actually, how everyone pulled together in that. Our suppliers, our customers, our team, and franchisees. It was an exciting. You shouldn't say it, but it was exciting to be able to get through that and grow. Last year we grew 377%. In a pandemic year, so not a bad thing.
Was there a reason for that? Do you think, in the general public, was there a shift?
No, I think we're just on a huge growth trajectory. It's just the way where we are, and we just punch through it.
Yeah, we launched 7 new franchise territories last year. So it's pretty good.
It's good growth.
Yeah.
Excellent. And final question for both of you is, if you could give one piece of advice to anybody who's maybe looking to buy a franchise, whether that's with your brand or any others, what would that one piece of advice be?
For me, it's make sure you have the support of your family. And when I'm looking at a candidate or talking to a candidate, I'm very conscious that it's so critical that their partner, their wife, their husband, whoever it may be, is fully behind that decision. And sometimes I actually ask them to bring them along to the meeting, just so that they can see, potentially the route, because it's not just that individual that's going to go on that journey, it's that family. And whatever, that happens within that business, within that franchise, is going to affect that family. And I want to be sure that they've got full support behind them. And I think that's really important. When I decided to leave Centrica and join Tim, the first thing I did was go home and talk to my wife about it. Make sure, I said, look, the next 3 years are going to be pretty full on. You're not going to see a lot of me. And when you do see me, I might not be that present, because it's going to be hard work. And, then we went to IKEA and had meatballs.
I was going to say, I was then interviewed by his wife. And it was an interview. It wasn't sort of covered up to be anything other than.
But why that was important was because I knew what it was going to take out of me, and she had to be there to support that, because it was going to affect her as well. So I think whenever I'm talking to a potential franchisee, really make sure you've got the support of your family behind you, because you'll need it. It's important you have that.
Yeah, good advice, definitely. And Tim?
I would say, that you have your finances sorted out, that you don't expect immediate returns, and that you don't think that you're going to do better than is predicted. So that, you make sure that you've either got that finance or you've got a passive income. Quite a few of our franchisees have rental properties that bring in that passive income, so that they can do that. But what you're not doing is, particularly with us, and I think with most franchises, is buying a job. That's, I think, something that a lot of people make a mistake in thinking, and that's not the case. And I think with us in particular, we make it very clear that it's 3 years of nose to the grindstone, and really hard work, and then you can start enjoying all those wonderful recurring revenues when you get up to a level. But it's not, you buy the franchise, you open the door, and there you are. You've got to put your back into it.
Yeah, fantastic. Really good advice. Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Tim, so much for your time. It's been great to hear about your careers, your stories, how easyStorage was formed, and learn a bit more about it. And thank you so much. It's been great. I've personally learned a lot as well, actually. So I really appreciate you spending so much time with me.
Well, thanks, Ed. It's been really enjoyable. We've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you. It really has. A pleasure.